Welcome into the Between the Hashes podcast. Thanks for joining us again. Episode number 2. We got a big week to recap. Really, really big week 9 in college football. A lot of big storylines, a lot of big things happen, a lot of movement in the polls, a lot of big games. So let's not waste any time. Let's dive into it. We had a big rivalry this weekend. Michigan State, the battle for the Paul Bunyan Trophy. Michigan took somewhat of a two quarterback approach in this game. Obviously, Davis Warren started the game, but they put Alex Orji in a lot for a lot of design QB runs, a lot of options and things like that to keep the defense off balance. What do we think about this approach from Michigan?
You want it, Peter?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was basically like Michigan had, they're in wildcat formation with an additional back, basically, because Orji did not throw the ball at all. I think for the future, this could be this could be a useful strategy against teams that aren't able to stop the run, and especially if you throw in RPOs and options. I think this could be a really, really good strategy for the team up north.
Yeah, no, I agree. I also think it forces teams to prepare for two quarterbacks, which is huge because that takes away from prepping for one guy for the entire time. You got to kind of split your time. So I think it not only keeps the defense off balance in games, but it keeps the defense kind of off balance when they're preparing. They're trying to prepare for two different guys. And that's especially useful for a team like Michigan, who is really one phase. They run the ball the majority of the time. So if you're able to incorporate, different players into that, it gives you a better chance to win, in my opinion.
All right. Well, John Madden famously said, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none, which I completely agree with. In this situation, it kind of works out, though, because you have one quarterback who's a running back, and you have one quarterback who's like Shea Patterson. Not the best, but he's above average. He's not going to be a superhero, but he can kind of get it done. But I also would want to see this two quarterback system versus a real team. Michigan State's not a good football team. They're getting better. They're not a good football team still, though. And if you're going to have Alex Orji on the field, you need to incorporate the RPO. Because if they don't do that, teams are going to load the box versus them. And then when Davis Warren comes on the field, they're going to take another safety or corner and put him on the field instead of the linebackers. So I just don't know how it's going to work out versus really good teams. But versus teams like Michigan State, it'll work. It'll work.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think that I definitely agree with Madden said. I mean, two quarterbacks, you basically have none. But I also think that when your second quarterback isn't really a quarterback, it's not as big of a deal. Like you were saying, in this case, it kind of works out. So
yeah, John Madden lived in a time where Alex Orji would never have played quarterback. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Speaking of quarterbacks, Texas A&M, in a way, kind of just blew out LSU this weekend. Put it in Marcel Reed at halftime. Thought it would be a good change. Actually, put Marcel in, then put Connor back in, and then put Marcel back in. So Marcel took over the game. I mean, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. He threw a bomb to Noah Thomas deep. If Texas A&M would have started Marcel Reed week 1 against Notre Dame, do we think that game has any different outcome? Do we think A&M wins that game?
I mean, maybe. I would have been his first. That was the first game of the season versus Notre Dame, right? Yeah. It would have been his first start of his career at Notre Dame as a true freshman. So first at A&M, but versus Notre Dame, I meant. So I don't know. But this is besides the point. But A&M, so for real, if Connor Wigman won that game, maybe he would have won the game. Also, this isn't a shot at Marcel Reed. He's an amazing quarterback. It worked out for them. But college coaches need to stop taking out their quarterbacks, putting the backup in, and putting the quarterback back in. It's pissing me off, and it just destroys the kid's mental. So
I agree. Peter, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, he looked insanely confident out there, and I think this is really good for A&M's future. I think this opens their playbook wide open. Wegman's not really, he's not a dual threat. He can escape the pocket when he needs to, but he's not Marcel Reed in terms of mobility and agility. So this opens the playbook to options RPOs, and even then Marcel has a really good arm, so you can keep throwing the ball as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know if he would have beat Notre Dame just because that would have been his first start in a really, really big game against a top 10 defense, which would have been the best Marcel would have faced. But I mean, I also don't think A&M had it figured out as a team week one. I think they've kind of been searching for that identity, and I think they found it this week. But yeah, Marcel has a swagger about him. You could tell every time he got in the end zone, every time he made a big play, he looked confident. He played confident from the moment he went into the end of the game. Great quarterback. I also will say I don't think LSU prepared for him at all, just because you don't really think he's going to come in. And if they did prepare for him at all, I don't think they prepared enough. They continuously did not take him on the QB reads. Continuously went after Moss and opened it up for Reed. But obviously a great game. But I do really want to see Marcel play a team who has a week of prep for Marcel. But all in all, I don't know if they would have won week one. That's a big if, just because that's a really good defense. But A&M looking like a good team. Speaking of teams looking like a good team, Penn State goes into Madison this weekend, gets a really convincing win against a really good defense. But one of the bigger storylines of this game is that Drew Aller was out around halftime. There was a minor injury, not exactly sure what happened. But is Penn State finally a complete team? How do they look to y'all? What do you think about Penn State, at this point in the season?
I don't really know. Penn State, year in and year out, is literally the most confusing team in the country, I swear. But I have a hot take here. I think that Bo Probabola or whatever, I think that
I
might
don't
be
know
his
say it
name,
either.
Probabola or something. It makes this team a lot better, actually. If you look at Penn State in the last, 10 or 15, in the James Franklin tenure, basically, Penn State loves quarterbacks like Trace McSorley, throw it on a dime. But um, it just opened up the run game so much when he came in. In the second half, Penn State had 120 yards rushing and 6 yards per carry. And it just makes them account for the quarterback. When Aller's in, they don't really want to run the ball as much. Now, Aller can run, but he's not the same runner as Bo. I'm not going to try to say his last name again.
Yeah, you're
But,
yeah.
yeah. Penn State has two running backs, and with Bo, I think it makes James Franklin run the offense that he always has wanted to run at Penn State.
I mean, I know I definitely agree with that. Well, partially. I think Aller just kind of has more of that veteran experience that you might need in bigger games like this coming weekend against Ohio State.
I think Bo gave him a spark, though.
I agree. I definitely think Bo gives that new aspect. You got to worry about his legs. He's a dog. I mean, he's a fighter. He knows how to win games. Obviously. I think the one thing that kind of worries me about Penn State is I haven't seen them with a receiver who can kind of take the top off the defense. Obviously, they have Tyler Warren, who's an absolute dog. He's fourth in receiving yards as a tight end in the country, but he's not the guy who's gonna, take the top off of safety. He's not gonna be the guy running those deep posts, man on man, trying to get behind the safeties. So that's something that I'm still watching, but obviously, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, both dogs. Offensive line play is always going to be good at Penn State. But one thing that kind of stuck out to me in particular is that this year Penn State has one shy of how many 40 and 50-yard plays they had last year. So I think that obviously last year there was a lot of criticism about they didn't take shots, they didn't throw the ball deep. But despite not having those playmakers outside this year, obviously losing Lambert Smith to the transfer portal, I think they're 25th in explosive plays, which isn't great, but it's better than past years. It's been like 50s and 60s. So I think that's something that leads me to believing that Penn State is a complete team. But I think just the lack of playmakers outside is kind of keeping me on the edge.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of big plays, their quarterback play has been really efficient this year. I mean, they're averaging 10 yards completion, which is good for fourth in the country. And they're averaging 260-something yards per game in the air, which is great. Everything in Penn State is really efficient. They're a really well-run machine. Their run has also been really efficient, 200-ish rush yards per game, 5 yards per carry. Obviously, they have the two backs. They're tearing shit up right now, as expected. They're also, defensively, they're good at stopping the pass and the run. They're only letting up 93 rush yards per game, which is 6th in the country, and then pass yards 175, which is 12th in the country. So they're a complete team. I do think so. I agree with you on having outside playmakers. I think they're one, true deep threat away from making a run for the title because they're a really good team.
I completely agree with that. I think the efficiency of quarterback, their defense is allowing, like you said, also allowing 14 points a game, which is good for seventh in the nation, and 4.3 yards of play, which is good for eighth in the nation. If you add a play, I mean, if someone can emerge and stuff, I don't even think it needs to be an addition, obviously, because you're mid-season. But if someone can kind of step up as that outside threat, that can take the top off the defense and take some of that pressure off Tyler Warren and off the running backs, and give Aller or Prabula, or however you say his name, just an option to go deep. I think that would do wonders for this team. And like you said, they're one playmaker away from, I think, being a legitimate title contender.
Penn
Still,
State always has that deep threat too. If you think
yeah,
about it, they always have like the short, like fast player,
yeah, because it was, what was it,
Jaden or whatever his name,
Godwin a while ago, and then
Jahan Dotson.
Godwin, Dotson, Lambert Smith was sort of that for them.
They had one in between. Oh, I can't even remember.
Was it Godwin, Marquise Godwin?
No, there was one in between Jahan Dotson. He's in the NFL now. I forget who he plays for. I mean,
If you, yeah, look it up and let me know. But yeah, they're, like you said, efficient offense. They're top 10 in yards per play. So I mean, let me rephrase. I think they are contenders, but I think if they had another a playmaker outside, I think I could legitimately see them winning the title. Um, Speaking of titles, the conference championship, the run for making the conference championship.
oh, not
And
to
every,
interrupt you. Parker Washington was the wide
yes, it
receiver.
was, yeah, because he had yeah. I remember Parker Washington. Where is he playing now?
I think he's on the Packers, like practice squad, maybe. I don't know.
I got you. Yeah. But yeah, so speaking of, like crazy conference title, I don't think I can remember a year where every single conference was like up in the air and like I don't know what's going to happen. But the ACC is crazy right now. Clemson and Miami seem to be the two front runners, but not Pitt, Pitt, Pitt and SMU are right there, both undefeated. Pitt got a big win against Syracuse this past Friday night, I believe, or Thursday night, and then SMU got a gritty win against a good Duke defense this Saturday night. Who's the bigger threat to a Clemson versus Miami ACC title showdown, Pitt or SMU?
Peter, you got it?
To go for it.
SMU has a much easier schedule for the last couple games of the season. They only have 4. They have one less. They have a bye. I think the week of the 9th, they're on bye or something like that. But they play Pitt, and then they have Boston College, UVA, and Cal, which should be 3 guaranteed wins for them. Pitt, obviously SMU next week, and then UVA, Clemson, Louisville, and Boston College. Clemson and Louisville are going to be tough games. I think Louisville should be a win. Clemson is I think it's going to go up in the air with them and Clemson, but I do think SMU has the better shot at this point in time based on their schedule.
Charlie.
I actually think it's Pitt because I think Pitt's going to beat SMU, and even if Pitt loses to Clemson, which I think they will, I don't think they'll lose to Louisville. But that even then, they'll have the win over SMU as a tiebreaker. And I also think that Eli Holstein is the X factor for Pitt. And I also think the Pitt defense is an amazing X factor. And I think they might just be the second best defense in the ACC behind Clemson. But they're not first. Speaking of really good defenses, Boise State.
Hey man, can I not talk about
Did you not talk? Oh, I thought you did. That's on me.
No, you're good. I'm just messing around. I said SMU. I think that this past weekend was a very uncharacteristic game for them with 6 turnovers. That doesn't happen, and you still win the game. That's a blowout if you just cut those in half. They obviously, Pitt and SMU play this weekend. They go to SMU. I think that obviously plays in SMU's favor. Going to be a great game. I don't have a prediction on it yet. I will later in the week. But like Peter said, I think, if SMU wins this week, they finish the season Boston College, Virginia, and Cal, which they get Cal at home, which is huge. That's not a crazy end of the season schedule. And Pitt also has to play Clemson. So there's a lot of dominoes right now that still need to fall. I'm giving the edge to SMU right now to kind of spoil that Clemson-Miami ACC showdown, but it's really up in the air. It really depends on what happens this weekend. That's going to be a game that possibly looking back on for a tiebreaker if Miami drops one or if Clemson drops one. So, I could really see either way. I'm just giving SMU the edge just because of the remaining schedule. So, but back to what Charlie was saying, Boise State. You can go ahead and say what you're going to say though.
All right. So who do you guys think or who do you guys think the G5 playoff bid's gonna be other than Boise State?
Like who has a chance at
Or who has the best chance? Yeah.
Yeah. I it's not UNLV because they have 2 losses now. So even if they beat Boise State, I don't see them getting unless like Boise State drops 3 and Army drops 3 or Army drops 2 or whatever, which is definitely possible. I'm not saying it isn't, but I think right now you have to say Army. They still have a decently by their standards. They play a electric North Texas offense. That's a tough matchup for them because they don't play great defense. They have Notre Dame and they have Navy. So that's a tough remaining schedule. Who has the best chance at challenging Boise State? I would say Army at this current moment. I think a lot has to happen for it to be UNLV. A lot of teams have to drop games, which is possible. Definitely possible. But to be honest, I don't think anyone is going to challenge Boise State for it. Even if Boise State drops one more game, finishes the year 12-1, I still think they're getting in.
Yeah, I said it was Army too, but this opens such a weird rabbit hole because what happens if Army and Navy play in the AAC championship and then they have to go play, and then college football playoff rankings come, and say Army made it somehow, then they have to go play Navy the next week after they already played Navy in the AAC championship?
Wait, do the rankings drop before they play on the 14th?
The rankings drop this Sunday after the championship week. So one of those teams could be in the playoffs and they'd have to go play, and then they'd play another game.
Wait, I didn't even think about that. Wait, so they could win the conference championship game. Playoff things drop. Even if they make it, they still have to play whoever that weekend. Army has to play Navy or Navy has to play Army, and then they have to play a playoff game. And you can't.
What would you even do in that situation? Because we could potentially have Army and Navy back-to-back weeks.
That would be awesome. First of all,
it would be awesome, but would they just cancel the game the next week or something?
I don't think you can cancel Army Navy.
Or would you just put in your backups or something? I don't know.
I would probably limit my starters, like quarterback, offensive line, right? Like the guys that are really crucial.
But I feel like the Army Navy game might be bigger to those schools than making the playoffs would be. I don't know.
I think winning that game is bigger than winning a playoff game for those schools. I didn't even think about that. That's actually crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know what you would do in that situation.
It's such a rabbit hole.
Now I really hope it happens because I
do too. It's happens.
So I'm gonna be praying on Boise State's downfall. Not Ashton Jeanty, he's my Heisman, but I will definitely be praying on their downfall. Peter, if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I said Army and maybe UNLV, but my dark horse that I picked was Tulane. They have 2 losses on the year, both of which were to ranked teams. They lost by 1 score to Kansas State, who is higher than Oklahoma now. So that maybe makes them look a little bit better. But like you said, I really don't think anyone's challenging Boise State at this point, unless they drop games and Army and UNLV or maybe even Tulane went out. But that's who I got.
I think the AAC is interesting. I think Memphis is also a 1-loss team right now.
I forgot about Memphis too.
Yeah, I honestly it just popped back into my head Tulane.
I hear about Memphis every single year. I feel like.
Yeah, Memphis is a 1-loss team. That's a sneaky team. They've been playing good football recently. Their only loss is to I think it was either Army or Navy. I think it was Navy.
I think it was Navy. I think Navy scored 56 versus them.
Yeah,
it was 56-20.
Yeah, they put belt to ass to them. But you never know. That's interesting if enough happens and there's a 1-loss Memphis conference champion. You never know. But anyways, moving on. another huge playoff race. I say huge playoff race, or not playoff race, conference championship race, but every conference is like that right now. BYU remains undefeated. They went to UCF this weekend. They were 1.5. I think by kickoff they were 2.5 point underdogs,
That
which
was so weird.
was
That was
fascinating to me. I smashed that line like I was real quick as soon as it dropped. I got it at like 1.5. But they remain undefeated. Um, I mean, to me, a lot of people are saying that Boise, or not Boise State, BYU is overrated. They're going to get exposed. I think BYU is a really good football team.
I
I,
did too.
like, I
Like,
think, I mean, they got guys. I mean, they got last year outside who's playing really well. They got good.
dog.
The Juby is playing well right now. Defense has its issues, but it's been doing what it's supposed to do. So who on BYU's schedule do y'all think if they're gonna take a loss, who do y'all think they match up with worse? Like who do you think could take BYU down?
Uh, dude, I don't even know. Like, I don't think it. I think they're going undefeated, man. Like, I
Lenny?
don't think they're losing another game. Their schedule is way too easy, and BYU might just have a first round bye in the playoffs,
But
which kind of brings me to a little rabbit hole steering off here. But if you think about it, the fifth seed in the playoffs might
so
just be
yeah,
the best spot to be, because you
you
could
play
play
the
Boise State or Army first round, then you play BYU, and then you're in the semifinals already, and
yeah.
that might just
This
be
is
better
a
than being
rabbit
number
hole.
one seed.
Not a
It's
rabbit
such
hole.
a rabbit
This is
hole.
a cheat code. I
It
mean,
no, it is.
I would prefer that over getting a bye and then playing like Georgia or
Yeah,
or Miami. Like I would,
the one seed can end up getting a bye and having Georgia come play them
yeah.
in the second round. So I don't know.
I completely agree. That's definitely something that they might need to look into when it comes to, tweaking the playoffs in the future. Um, Peter, if you have any thoughts on BYU.
Yeah, I really didn't know how to like answer this. Like, I mean, Kansas, maybe Kansas is the best option, but then Houston, ASU, and Utah, all three of those teams suck dick now. So I really don't know. I really don't know how to answer this question.
Yeah. First of all, let me say I don't think they're going to lose a game the regular season. I think that we will probably be seeing a BYU versus Kansas State or a BYU versus Iowa State conference championship game. But I think the one team that maybe poses the biggest threat is Arizona State, just because they run the ball really well. They're over 200 a game, which is top 20 in the country, led by Cam Scatteraboo, who's a dog. Uh,
Dog.
dog. But it's also an away game. It's at night, and we've seen weird things happen. Like even like Pac-12, Big 12, like late games, we see weird things happen. You never know. BYU's not very good against the run. They're a I think 70th in rush yards per game allowed. So I just think matchup wise, this is their toughest matchup, but I don't see them losing it. I could see it getting a little close late, but I think BYU wins out. So we'll see. Um, they also play Utah, and obviously Utah sucks, but that team always plays hard, so you never know. But speaking of the Big 12, Iowa State and Kansas State in the final week of the season is going to be electric. Good chance that that is for, determining who's going to play BYU in the conference championship game because BYU has that head-to-head win over Kansas State. But what game could possibly prevent either Iowa State or Kansas State? Sorry, which game? Which game could prevent like a Kansas State versus BYU, or Kansas State versus or Iowa State versus BYU championship game?
I mean, maybe Cincinnati. I don't know. The Big 12 just sucks, man. Like,
I think it's a very top heavy conference, right?
I think it's the Power Three. Honestly, I don't think they should be considered Power Four, but that's besides the point. I say Cincinnati because Brendan Sorsby, their quarterback, is good, but besides the point, OU should have stayed in the Big 12. But
I could agree with that. They're sucking it up in this.
they'd make the playoffs if they're in the Big 12. So.
Honestly, I mean, gosh, yeah. I mean, I think Texas Tech could maybe give Iowa State issues just because they air that bitch out. I mean but that defense is absolutely awful. I mean, it ranks dead last in about everything.
How's
Um,
Micah Hudson playing this year? I didn't even think about
I
that.
don't think he's playing much.
Really?
So yeah, which is
Bro,
interesting.
bro went to Texas Tech for playtime and then just didn't
And
play
isn't
for them.
playing. That's yeah. But BYU holds the tiebreaker over Kansas State. So BYU can drop a game and still make it. Because then it would be BYU versus Iowa State, as long as Iowa State beats Kansas State. But then you have the situation, well, what if Kansas State beats Iowa? I mean, it's just a whole thing. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. It's really gonna come down to that the last week of the season when it Kansas State versus Iowa State. So. Peter, I don't know if you had any thoughts on it, but if you want to chime in.
Nah, there's not really many teams I could see that prevent that game. I said again, maybe like Kansas, but I would say Iowa State is probably gonna win out.
Mm-hmm. What do we think about Colorado?
I don't think they're gonna make the Big 12 championship. It's just unfortunate for them. They're playing their best football late in the year. I would love to see them make it to the Big 12 championship and make it to the playoffs because I love watching them. They're really fun to watch. Finally threw the ball to Jimmy Horn this week.
They finally ran the ball this week.
Finally did, yeah.
Finally,
And Dallin Hayden wasn't the star running back. I was shocked about that.
yeah. Um, I don't think it's too late. Well, I think it's too late for them to win the Big 12. But what happens if they win out 10-2? Are they a playoff
I
team?
mean, maybe just because there's the primetime Shador Guzzlers and Travis Hunter Guzzlers, but the playoff committee is a lot different than the AP poll. They actually know what they're talking about. They're not just beat writers and people that just suck the players' dicks. So they'll have the rankings right. I'm excited that comes out on Tuesday. Thank God.
I
So
forgot that
supportive,
soon.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, yeah. Like I said, you never know. I mean, they have who do they have remaining on their schedule. I mean, obviously it's the Big 12, so it's not like crazy hard, but I mean, I'm sure it isn't easy either. But
They got four
I just
winnable
want to
games coming
mention my Big 12 championship prediction for this year was Utah versus Kansas. So
yeah,
Oh,
mine was Utah, Kansas State. So
I thought Jalen Daniels was going to be in the Heisman conversation.
well,
But
I
I
thought
don't know.
Cameron Rising wasn't gonna get hurt for the
No,
27th.
he won't next year, or maybe in 2026. We'll see. But
We'll see. Heisman campaign year 10. He's gonna end up playing a longer college career than most dudes play in the NFL. It's actually unreal. Moving on to Saturday night, A&M. We kind of talked about this earlier with Marcel Reed, but A&M got a huge, I mean, program-defining win over LSU in College Station. So, what went right for A&M and what went wrong for LSU?
Marcel Reed,
Reed.
absolute dog. But I guarantee Peter's going to talk about this, and you're going to talk about this too. So I'm going to take it a different route. Mike Elko is one of my favorite coaches in the country, and I think he's one of the best coaches in the country. And to the LSU side of things, LSU led 17-7 at half, and they were just unable to adjust to Marcel Reed. And midway through the third quarter, you could tell LSU was trying to make a lot of defensive adjustments, but they just couldn't, especially because Garrett Nussmeier had a few turnovers, and that made it so they didn't have enough time off the field. So ultimately, I think it was the defense, but it didn't help that Garrett Nussmeier threw a few.
Yeah, no, that offense was not good at all. I mean, they really couldn't get the run game going at all. They had like 24 yards on the ground, which is abysmal for any Division I offense. And that forced Nussmeier to throw 50 times, and he only completed half of his passes, and 3 of them were interceptions. Defensively, they, like he said, like Charlie said, they couldn't adjust. I don't, I think we said earlier, I don't think that you don't game plan for the backup. So they just really couldn't adjust. Also in the red zone, they just could not get off the field. They were A&M was 6 for 6 in the red zone.
I will add four of those were Marcel Reed.
Yeah, and never mind. I had something else, but never mind.
No, yeah, I agree. Obviously, I think LSU not being able to get the run game going kind of was, I think, in my opinion, one of the biggest reasons they lost. Like you said, it forced Nuss to throw it 50 times, which also forced 3 interceptions. Nuss all year, he has great accuracy. He moves up in the pocket. He plays really well. He plays like an NFL quarterback, but he makes very questionable decisions sometimes. I think another thing that A&M was able to do is they won the line of scrimmage, not just in the run game, but in the pass game. That LSU offensive line had allowed, I think, 1 sack all year long. So the fact that they were able to get a ton of pressure on, even if it wasn't just sacks, but pressure on Nussmeier, that definitely affected the game. But yeah, like you said, little no time prepping for Marcel Reed. Defense wasn't playing discipline at all. LSU 24 rushing yards. That's absolutely, like you said, abysmal. That's just ridiculous. But obviously, the main thing here is Marcel Reed. 5 drives, 4 touchdowns for Marcel Reed. I mean, unbelievable. Got it done in the air. Only 2 attempts, but got it done in the air. 2 for 2 for 70 yards.
He can spin it. He can spin it.
He can spin it. I mean, that was an accurate deep ball to Noah Thomas. And the reason that was open, it wasn't even crazy open, but the reason he had space to throw that ball was because of how well the run game was going. He opened up the run for Le'Veon Moss. Once he got put in, I feel like he just fits the offense better, and it makes things work better in College Station. But A&M now controls their own destiny. LSU has to win out. Do we think LSU can win out?
Maybe the Bama game to me is 50-50.
Yeah.
But I also don't know if LSU is good enough to beat Bama. But the game is also in Happy Valley, or not Happy Valley. My bad. Thinking about the wrong thing right now.
He's too locked in on Ohio State this weekend.
Yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
He's dialed. No,
But
yeah.
I have another point. Shout out at A&M fans. No one deserved this win more than them. They're some of the most unbandwagonish fans, unfair weather fans, unfair weather like fans, you could say. And they sell out Kyle Field every game, every year. So it's a great win for them. Happy for the team too.
Yeah. Obviously, LSU, they have Bama at home. Milrow's been banged up, but he gets a week to rest. They go to the Swamp against an improved Florida team. So they definitely have some challenges to go. But I think one thing I want to leave this kind of topic on is I was talking to a friend yesterday, and we were talking about Brian Kelly. And the theme over the past couple of years has been, Brian Kelly is great at, game planning. He's great at, getting ready for the game. But if it doesn't work, they're kind of screwed. Like, his in-game adjustments over the past few years have been questionable. I mean, if you look back to last year against Florida State in the second half, they got completely blown out. Last year against Alabama in the second half, it was a horrible performance. Second half this year against A&M, terrible performance. USC this year in the second half, bad performance. They had chances to put him away, but didn't make the correct adjustments. So I think I need to see, obviously, improvement from Brian Kelly in-game.
Big game, Brian Kelly.
In-game, Brian.
It's always been a thing. Never have won a big game.
Yeah, so that's what I want to see from Brian Kelly moving forward. But moving on to the Big Ten, Ohio State, weird game against Nebraska, somehow narrowly escapes. What specifically would you say was wrong? Kind of defense was fine. What would you say was wrong with that Ohio State offense this Saturday? It's looked so dominant all year, even against Oregon, and just kind of was non-existent this past weekend.
It was the Josh Simmons injury. This injury is really bad for Ohio State. This offense was one of the best in the country, if not the best, and it just looks completely incompetent without Josh Simmons there. And this all leads back to Justin Fry's recruiting. We've missed out on so many 5-stars over the year, or Ohio State's missed out on so many 5-stars over the years. And Zen Mahalski goes in and looks absolutely terrible. And when Donovan Jackson moved out to tackle, it did look a little better. So I'm pretty sure he'll start this week, especially because Zen Mahalski did get carted off the field. But it's just the left tackle injury. It all leads back to recruiting for Ohio State. So.
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah, we just need a left tackle. We also need our guys to get hot. The right people did not get hot in the game. I mean, Carnell Tate he was the only 100-yard receiver. JJ had, I wrote 7. I don't think that he had definitely had more. I think like 70 yards. Quinshon had 38 yards. Emeka had 20. Trevion had 25. I mean, our offense just, no one got hot. No one stepped up.
Shout out Will Howard though.
Yeah, shout out
Will Howard is playing with some swag. Will Howard is playing with some swag.
Yeah,
he's looked a lot better, and Ohio State's going to need him to put on a superhero cape going on forward. So, Also, I have one more thing. Chip Kelly, I don't know why you didn't throw the ball downfield in the first half, they were 2 for 2 on two 70-yard bombs by Will Howard. Perfect throws. One of them was average, but he let Carnell Tate be Carnell Tate. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
just bad play calling.
Yeah,
No.
everything I'm about to say is going to go back to the left tackle injury, but they couldn't get the run going. Judkins 10 for 29, Henderson 10 for 25, and this is the best running back duo in the country. Obviously, there's something to be said about performance just on their part too. It's not all on the offensive line, but I obviously think that's a big part of it. And then you're 1 for 10 on third down. It's hard to win games when you're 1 for 10 on third down. But the reason they were 1 for 10 on third down is because they weren't able to get in a lot of third and shorts just because of the lack of the run game. They weren't able to get themselves in management positions. They also ran 20 less plays than Nebraska and held the ball for 10 minutes less. That's on the defense. Couldn't get stops. Nebraska was long drive. Also on the offense, they were getting stopped pretty fast. I mean, a lot of 3 and outs, as you can see from the 1 for 10 on third down. But Nebraska really controlled the game on offense. They kind of did what they wanted to do. They long drives, which is kind of the recipe to beating Ohio State, is keeping their offense off the field. But yeah, well, what I found was really interesting, and this isn't me trying to glaze Indiana because I go to school here, but Indiana ran for 215 yards on Nebraska. Ohio State, I mean, I don't even think they got a fourth. I think they got like a fourth, a little over a fourth of that. So
I have a point here. This week in a press conference, they're interviewing Nebraska's defensive coordinator, and he was asked about what happened against Indiana, and he said, "That'll never happen against my defense again. This week going to Ohio State, our number one point is to stop the run. Nothing else matters as long as we can stop the run. And I'm going to sell my soul to stop the run." So maybe that's
maybe he sold the soul. Maybe he sold his soul to stop the run.
Also, Nebraska played this game not to get blown out. I don't think they really had the intentions to win the game. Well, they obviously did, but they didn't go into the game thinking they're going to win the game. They just held the ball, tried to stop the run, and blitzed a lot. So
yeah, and I think one of the big things that they did was they put a lot of attention in the secondary on Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. But the thing about Ohio State is when you do that, there's a guy like Carnell Tate running open. So that's just kind of what makes Ohio State so hard to beat. But is Nebraska good? Are they mid? Are they bad? Play the game of their life? What do we think about Nebraska following that game?
Man.
Yeah, they're mid. They can be good at times. They flash. Dylan Earl flashes. Their defense kind of flashes, but not defending Ohio State here because I'm an Ohio State fan, not trying to be biased, but it's never good when you play a Power 4 team after they get blown out by 50. And I think that game against Indiana was a fluke game, and the Ohio State game was a sort of get-right game. But when you play a top 4 team, it's going to be the biggest game of your season. When a team plays Ohio State in the Big Ten, it's always the biggest game of the season. And I'm not trying to defend Ohio State or anything. And also, one thing as an Ohio State fan that's kind of affecting me right now is that 3 weeks ago, before the Oregon game, I was thinking that this is going to be the best team Ohio State's ever had, one of the best teams in the country. And now I'm looking at it like, are we even going to make the Big Ten championship? And like, how did it fall downhill so fast? But not going to get any predictions here.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's like, I wouldn't say shit's hit the fan for Ohio State.
No, I don't. Every team has this game that they show.
Yeah, here's the thing. It's like college football. It's there's so much parity now just because of the portal and because of NIL, and a lot of teams are a lot more equal now. And games like this are going to happen that didn't happen 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, Alabama, even last year and the year before, they weren't blowing out teams every week like they were a few years prior to that. So I just think that's something to think about. On the side of Nebraska, I think they are a mid team with a lot of potential in the coming years. They're just young. Raiola's young. He's going to make those mistakes.
He looked absolutely terrified at the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
Ohio State was sending like 8 guys.
He was doing his little home rituals.
He was just standing there like, and he like would then he'd see someone running at him and turn around and get blasted by Tyreek Williams. He looked terrified.
Dog Tyreek Williams.
Dog. Former teammate of Peter Davis.
Really?
Yeah, I ran track in middle school with him.
That's funny.
He was probably a little. Was he still was he a big kid back then?
He might have. He was in 8th grade. He might have been 6'3" or 6'4", like 230, 240. Because he broke
That's great.
he broke the team shot put record and won a regional title.
Okay, so he did shot. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You think that big
but
guy's
yeah.
running the 100-yard
He
dash?
probably was faster. Those guys are a lot faster.
Dude, sometimes, I'm about to say, those guys can be faster than they look. I mean,
Oh yeah,
college
absolutely.
athletes and NFL
We had a
athletes.
lineman from our school that started at West Virginia, and he came to like one of our football practices and practiced with us, and I was running against him, and he was like beating me in sprints, and he ran like it was like freshman year though. Of course I'd beat him now, but
Of course, I'd wipe the floor with his ass now, but
fun fact, I ran a 4.56 my senior year,
Ooh,
because I'm like that.
yeah, you're definitely a gritty guy,
Yeah,
one in,
I
first one
studied the
out.
playbook. I knew all the plays.
Mr. Reliable.
Speaking of not knowing the plays, Jermaine Burton did not know plays this week, but
You you were the first guy in, last guy out kind of guy, weren't you?
yeah, I blocked my ass off.
I bet you did. That's what you got to do. But yeah, so just kind of summarizing all that, what do we think OSU needs to clean up most before a big weekend in Happy Valley?
I have 2 points. I assume Zen Maholski won't start from here on out, and I assume he's out, which is a good thing for Ohio State fans. And I think you have to put Donovan Jackson out at left tackle because he is your second best lineman behind Seth McLaughlin. Wink, wink, Noah. And he's the most athletic lineman Ohio State has. He was going to start at left tackle last year until they got Josh Simmons from the portal. And I think it's worth a shot. So you have to test stuff out. Also, they have a right guard right now who's behind Tegra Shabola, who's been rotating with him. Austin Sarabel, they need to move him to left tackle because you need to have your 5 best linemen on the field. You can't have Austin Sarabel sitting on the bench. And the other point I had is Jordan Hancock needs to stay on the field. Stop putting 3 linebackers in. When Jordan Hancock's on the field this year, Ohio State hasn't given him a play of more than 20 yards. So I don't know why they're taking him off the field. And I'll give this to you, Peter, but those are my 2 points.
Yeah, we just got to get a left tackle. That's one of the biggest things. But also on the defensive side of the ball,
That's literally it.
yeah, that's like the biggest thing. We absolutely need a left tackle.
Especially because y'all face Abdul Carter.
Abdul Carter might have 6 sacks, but that's
Abdul Carter
hilarious.
might terrorize
not
whoever's
on
playing
Will
left
Howard,
tackle.
not on dual threat Will Howard, not a chance.
Yeah, Will Howard will hurdle over him and throw a deep downfield.
Yeah, absolutely. 60-yard bomb in the air.
I'm kidding. But seriously, I'm excited that Will Howard gets to play a team under the lights because he needs more credit for what he's doing right now at Ohio State.
Yeah, he
The
does.
60-yard bomb is Abdul Carter is like driving him into the ground.
Yeah,
Hey, all he has to do is throw it up to Jeremiah Smith, and Jeremiah Smith will do what Jeremiah Smith does.
damn straight.
Yeah.
But yeah, defensively, when we played Oregon, our defensive line did not exist for whatever reason. They looked really good against Nebraska. They got a lot of pressure on the quarterback, on Raiola. So they just got to keep that going into Penn State and then beyond that as well.
Yeah. I want to see Jim Knowles get more creative. Kind of like what you were saying.
He was really creative versus Nebraska.
Yeah.
Almost 2 overcorrection, though. I kind of think.
I want to see more blitz packages, disguise coverages. They're going to be facing, if Aller is indeed the starter, which I think he will be, they're going to be facing a much more veteran quarterback this weekend. So you got to give him some stuff that he doesn't see too often, confuse him, which is hard to do for a veteran quarterback, and get pressure on him. And that pressure
Blitz Caleb Downs.
Blitz Caleb Downs. I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, corner blitz.
Caleb Downs saved 3 70-yard touchdowns this week. I don't know. Did he do that a lot at Bama?
Yeah, he'd always make it tackle-wise. Yeah, he'd always
Dude,
make
it was insane. Like, it would be one-on-one, and he would just take out the running back's ankles. Like, He has the best instincts. Like, no glaze. He has the best instincts I've ever seen in the football.
Saban said it himself. He was one of the most highest IQ players he ever coached. But yeah, and I think that pressure kind of starts with JTT and Jack Sawyer. What?
I was just going at that about Caleb Downs. Speaking of JTT and Jack Sawyer, by the way, they need to
get
stop
going.
running past the quarterback.
They need to get going. They need a big week this weekend, I think. But obviously, we'll talk more about that.
JTT will, because it's a legacy game.
JTT's
Yeah,
feasting.
JTT Penn State legacy, it never fails. It never fails. JTT always has his game against Penn State. So
JTT and
If
Jack
you-
Sawyer are the 4th and
if
5th best
JTT
Ohio State recruits ever, by the way.
if JTT played Penn State every week, he would probably be breaking records right now.
He'd be Chase Young. He'd be exactly what Chase Young was.
He would
He'd
win the
be better.
Heisman. He would win the Heisman.
He would win the Heisman Trophy. if he played
Okay,
Penn State this weekend.
after the Penn State game in 2022, I actually thought that JTT was going to be like the greatest Ohio State player ever because strip sacks, like 2 sacks, pass deflection that ended up a pick and a pick six
Yeah,
that game.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, I guess my team played this weekend. Alabama beats down a pretty injured Missouri team. Who would y'all say is to credit for the defensive turnaround since Vandy? Seems like it's kind of been a whole new unit ever since that Vandy game.
Brady Cook.
I said the
I,
exact same thing. I
I
actually
meant no
said the
in
exact
general,
same
like
thing.
against they played great. I mean Tennessee, they played good against South Carolina, they played good against this weekend.
All right.
Obviously Brady Cook, yeah.
Week 4 through 8, Alabama's defense gave up 27 points per game, and Coach DeBoer in an interview was addressing how they need to improve their defense, and said, "You're only as good as your last play, and you're only as good as your last game." So I don't really know what that means, to be honest, but uh, he also said there are things you have to make sure you do well, and there are some good things that vibe together as a football team. So basically, what I'm saying here is I think it's the vibes of the football
Yeah.
team.
I agree.
Maybe Malachi Moore didn't want to be. I'm not even gonna say it, but I don't think I can say it personally. But he he's been playing better football. The secondary, I honestly think, is the reason they're playing better. The first 8 weeks of the season, I was like, holy shit, their secondary is cooked. After the Vanderbilt game, I was like, if they make it to the playoffs, it might be over for Bama. But also, to be fair, Brady Cook did not play.
Yeah.
But Luther Burden did play.
True. I will say, a lot of the points that the Alabama defense has allowed, I'm honestly blaming on the offense. A lot of just lackluster drives, a lot of turnovers, penalties, and just giving the other team great field position. And, our defense is having to play on the field the majority of the game, which is not a good recipe for success. But, I mean, I think just the leaders on the defense, like you said, Malachi Moore, Tim Keenan, Deontay Lawson, just guys stepping up, Jahad Campbell, and then Kane
God,
Womack.
one of you guys had Caleb Downs.
Hey,
Man,
Bray Hubbard was the highest graded safety in the SEC this week. That's all I gotta
And
say.
Caleb Downs is the highest graded
That's all
safety
I
in the
gotta
world.
say.
in the world, in the
But,
world.
Kane Womack, he caught a lot of flack the first few weeks, but never wavered, kept the same scheme, kept doing what he was doing, and I think Alabama is first in turnovers forced this year now. I think they have like 18 or 19 turnovers forced so far this year, so definitely something to say for that. But
Yeah, great second half adjustments by Kane Wambach.
yeah, yes, most definitely. And speaking of the second half, what do we think? Kind of seemed like the game busted open in the second half. It seemed like it just kind of went downhill for Missouri and uphill for Alabama. What do we think kind of caused that?
Drew Pine has been passed around more than a hooker in GTA, so I think he just fell apart. But also, like I said, second half adjustments. They forced a lot of turnovers. I didn't really watch this game, but got some text from Noah during it, so I could tell that Alabama was playing really good and that defense is looking better.
Yeah, when I'm honestly, I'm probably a little bit more talkative when we're playing bad than when we're playing good. But yeah, when we're playing good just by how I'm talking.
I agree. I don't even agree actually. I kind of shut down when Ohio State is playing bad.
Like I shut down like in person I shut down, but like over the phone, dude, I could get arrested for
Dude,
some things I've said out.
someone could hand me $1,000 when Ohio State's losing, and I'd
I
be like,
wouldn't
"Get the
budge.
fuck out of my face!"
I'm about to say I wouldn't even budge. I'd be
Yeah,
so
I would actually be like, "Get the fuck out of my face."
yeah. But I think obviously defense, turnovers, and all that. But Alabama finally had a consistent run game, and not just like efficient. It wasn't just they were getting yards, but they consistently ran the ball, which has been something they haven't done recently. They always abandon the run. But Milrow had 11 carries, which I think 10 to 15 is a sweet spot. I think it'll be even more against LSU. Justice Haynes went 9 for 79. Offensive line played well. I think this was
I
Booker.
got a point on Justin Hayes. I was not big on him at all, but now I'm kind of liking him. Wish he
Yeah.
went to Ohio State, even though he'd be buried in the depth chart. Probably would have transferred by now, but I am I am big on him.
Yeah. But no, I mean, offensive line play well. I just think, like you said, I think the vibes is different. The energy is good. Tyler Booker, I think, kind of this week in practice kind of gave everyone a message.
Yeah, bro, saw that on the ESPN post.
Well, yeah, Tyler Booker always gives people messages. It's just sometimes it doesn't work, but who knows?
I can
Um,
just tell Tyler Booker sends crazy Snapchats. Him and Ryan Williams probably made crazy thirst traps.
nah, dude, Tyler Booker has like a girlfriend of 3 years.
Really?
Yeah, so he's chill. Tyler Booker's chill, but Ryan, I won't comment on that.
Yeah.
Uh, Peter, do you have anything to say on that, or
Nah,
Did
all right?
Ryan Williams have a big game?
no.
I was like 60 yards. It was funny. So Milrow took off for like a 40-yard run, and they showed the replay, and Ryan Williams was like 70 yards downfield. Like the closest defender was probably 20 yards away from him. And I was like, all right, I'll take the run. Like I'll take the 30-yard run. Like that's good. But holy shit.
Damn, Will Howard would have hit Jeremiah Smith wide open.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't doubt it.
Will Howard does get run.
I will say, like, so obviously, what I was going to ask next is if we're encouraged or kind of unmoved by this win. I'm encouraged in certain ways, but Milrow overthrew 2 touchdowns. He's done that every week since Georgia. He's been overthrowing deep balls, which is something he didn't really do a lot of last year, which is interesting. So, I mean, he's missed Ryan Williams in stride. He's missed Kobe Prentice in stride last week. So, I don't know. And, I get, just on the topic of being encouraged about the win, I get Missouri had a backup QB playing most of the game, but 72 passing yards combined in general is kind of ridiculous. Like that's just really good defense, no matter who it is. So I'm encouraged, but I still think there are a lot of things that I want to see, mostly from the offense.
Yeah, I'm encouraged too. I completely flipped my thoughts on them. I thought their season was over. Now I think they still can make the playoffs. I want to see Milrow versus LSU. I don't know what happened to him. I think it's just a confidence thing because he showed he can do it, but it also might be DeBoer's system. But I won't get into that.
Well, DeBoer isn't calling the plays, I don't think it's DeBoer's. Here's my thing. I think that Milrow just doesn't fit DeBoer's system. Like,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
yeah, he's trying to in a way tailor it around Milrow without kind of abandoning his system. But I think a guy like Ty Simpson or like a guy like Keelan Russell who will be here, I think those two guys are guys that really fit, kind of that DeBoer QB mold. So we'll see. Peter, thoughts on the win?
Defensively, I'm pretty encouraged. They've improved a lot since Vandy. Offensively, I mean, even our whole team, I'm kind of mixed. I mean, they played a pretty injury-riddled Missouri offense. I mean, they're missing their starting quarterback, their starting running back, and one of their starting receivers. Still have penalty problems. They're 7 on the day. It's much better than Tennessee when they had 15 for like 100-something yards. That's
I'm about to say 7
improvement.
somehow is an improvement.
Yeah, 7 is an improvement. And then on third down, they're 2 for 9, and 3 of the misses were on 3-and-out drives. So maybe see some better offensive efficiency. But all in all, I'm pretty encouraged.
Yeah. I think one thing I want to add before we move on to our last point of the episode is that there was one sequence in the game, and sorry, my computer just messed up. There was one sequence in the game, and it was I think it was Missouri's last offensive play of the game. It was 4th and goal. Alabama had their second strings in for a little bit, but it's 4th and goal. Alabama puts the majority of their starters back in at 4th and goal, gets a goal line stop, stadium erupts. Sideline erupts, players erupt, coaches are, going crazy. Kane Womack is jumping up in the air, pumping his fist. If Alabama wins out and makes the playoffs, I think that's going to be a play that people look back on and like, yeah, this is where the season turned around right here. That's big if, like they still got to win out, but I think that's a play that, looking back on it, could be something where like, oh yeah, this is what sparked that. So. But moving on to our last little topic, and I have a good one today. So we put out an Instagram poll on our story yesterday, I believe, and it was asking for your biggest hot take or reaction from this past weekend, just something that on your mind that is like, whoa, that might be weird to say, but I saw one that I really liked, and it was that Clark Lee is going to take Vandy to a 10-2 season at some point. Thoughts?
I mean, they have 2 losses right now, right?
Yeah, like it's like not this year, just like in the future.
I could see it. I mean, is Diego Pavia their quarterback next year?
I think so.
Then yeah, maybe. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I could totally see it, especially with the NIL transfer portal now.
and they're
It,
recruiting well too right now.
they are. I mean, they're about to land a 4-star maybe. So
Yeah, Mr. Star. But yeah, Peter,
Hot take, they go 10-2 this year.
they're 5-3.
Hot take, they go 9-3 this year.
I mean, they play LSU.
That's a dub.
Hot take, they beat LSU.
So they
Pavia
might
is
play
out.
LSU and A&M. I can't lie.
Pavia is outplaying Nussmeier, and that isn't even a question.
They play LSU, Tennessee, Auburn, and USC.
I hear 4 W's.
Dub, 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 dub.
Win. That's 4 wins.
It'd be the most SEC thing ever for them to lose to Auburn and USC and then beat Vandy. And
Yeah.
What happens then? Where do they get ranked at the end of the season if they win?
Probably first because they're in the SEC.
Wait, so if they go what, 7-5?
No, yeah, if they go 7-5, the AP poll will have them ranked like 15th, but the college football won't have them.
Hey,
ranked.
go commies, baby. I think it's definitely a possibility if he stays at Vandy. I definitely think that in the future he's going to have some pretty big job offers.
He won't say it.
So it's just going to depend on if he can get funding at Vandy or how competitive these offers are. Obviously, I don't think Vandy can. For example, I don't know if don't think Florida's going to offer the job to him. But if Florida were to offer him the job, that's a lot more money than Vandy can pay him. So you never know. But some guys don't care about the money. But
Vandy also can't recruit as well as he probably
yeah,
wants to.
that's true. There's
Just because of their academics.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot more resources down in Florida to recruit. So.
And Florida will be opening. Florida State might be opening.
I definitely think there will be some opportunities for him this offseason, if not this offseason next.
Florida's not open.
Him and
What?
Kirk Sig.
What'd you say?
What do you say about Florida, Charlie?
We said there might be a Florida job opening after this year.
Like a quarterback? Oh,
No,
you're talking about coach.
no.
Oh, coach.
Coach.
I got lost. My bad.
Who'd you say is not
DJ
opening?
Lagwet.
He's a dog.
Dog. Yeah,
What did he post on Twitter? Like, if you're not with us when we ask, you better be with us when we call. Like, bro,
He's in the portal as soon as the season ends.
like, bro, you guys are like 2-10. Shut the fuck up. No one cares.
Yeah, good old Florida. Good old Sunbelt Billy. I never understood that hire, but I guess
Florida fans loved it. So.
the Florida fans were coping. That's what Florida fans were doing. But
Florida fans have been coping since Urban Meyer and Marco Wilson. So.
yeah, Saban made a good point. They didn't take advantage of building up when Urban was there, and now they're kind of screwed. But you know. But anyways, we appreciate y'all for tuning in. I know this was a bit long of an episode, but I think it went well. I think we had a good time. Covered a lot. Obviously, we will be back later this week with our kind of weekend preview. Stay tuned during the week. Obviously, a lot of posts this week, a lot of posts during the weekend on Instagram. But anyways, appreciate y'all watching. Subscribe, like, comment, do all that good stuff. Peace.